Hi, my name is Ken Rasmussen. I wrote a microbiome prescription website, and this is a second beginner's guide to getting suggestions from the site. This one is a little bit different because the sample has to be teased a bit to get suggestions out of, which is actually good because some people are in that situation. The persons whose sample I'm working with is a person with chronic fatigue syndrome, has had it for already 7 years, and they appear to be working. So what I would normally define as being a mild case of chronic fatigue syndrome, if you are able to work, then I would define it as mild to moderate, probably closer to mild compared to other things people have experienced. So here we are online, we have the samples, and I'm going to walk through some of the steps quickly, which I did in detail in the first one, simply to go through the process. I'm also going to add some extra information for people to learn more about the microbiome. As before, we could just start with my biome chart. And the purpose of the chart is to flag the particular bacteria which are really significant. And from those, if there are a significant number, see if we can get suggestions for absolutely the ones which are of the greatest concern in isolation by themselves. That is, sometimes an issue arises because 5 bacteria all produces the same chemicals or metabolites, and while none of them are abnormally high, the combination puts the amount of that metabolites into the body over a threshold, and secondary reaction happens. So we're not looking at combinations that we'll come to that in a moment. We are looking at the individual outstanding criminals, if you wish. Okay, to recap, the microbiome is like humanity. In fact, probably there's as many bacteria in your body and on your skin as there are people in the world. So we have a diverse range. Now, at the highest level, we have bacteria, which would be the world. Next level down would be a phylum, which can best be described as a continent. Underneath the continents, most continents have countries in them. Within the countries, we may have states. Within the states, we may have counties. Within the counties, we may have towns. Within the towns, we may have neighborhood. And inside the neighborhood, we have individual streets. So it's the same type of hierarchy. The total here is the sum of the census of everything underneath it. The gotcha is that if you take a look at it, sometimes you see, okay, all of this particular item is the same as this one, and the next one down is here. And wait a minute, this seems to be a missing gap here. We have 21,000 here, but we have no other neighborhoods or no other towns reporting, but the county has that many. So there's 2,000 in the unincorporated, the unclassified bacteria which we don't know how to identify. And then we have a particular species, and we only have one. And the rest of them are the lab you're using do not know how to identify the other species that may exist. So in other words, we have census which is not totally reliable as in being complete, but it is complete for what it is trying to detect. Okay, so we go through, and to make it very quick, I'm just going to browse down. We have one item which is low. We would normally go ahead and check that because how much it's low is a good amount. The next one down, we have nothing. We have one which is high. Oh boy, are we sky high. Take a look at those numbers. The number range is 10 to 74. And we are way off the chart. And particularly, we have one particular bacteria which is off the charts. And actually, I see an issue here. The issue is a heritage issue. because I have been fixing some data problems, and the number here is from before I fixed the data problems, and these numbers so I'm going to mark that ignore for the moment, and once I reprocess the data, that should disappear totally, because basically that is in a normal range, and that is the next level up. So there's a problem with the calculations there, and I know why. I won't get into technical issues. Let's go down. The next one is right here, and that is, we have that right here, which is a non-healthy predictor. That one's fine, nothing there. Another one which is low, perhaps sufficiently low, except you see the word unclassified, which means that generally we don't have much idea about what it is, which usually causes me to skip it, go down anymore. Here we have another one. This one isn't marked as warning, but it indicates that. So if the person has high blood pressure, or has high fat percentage, or have a high body mass index, in other words, obese, then I would check that. If they're not obese, I would not worry about it. So nothing there, nothing there. And down here we have a pathogen, etc. So we have those things. And so we mark those because they are high. Actually, let's stop for a moment. 200 here, number range is 573. Percentile, while they are high, they are a little bit of concern, so it's sort of a bit, you may or may not include. Again, there's no hard and fast rules. Again, more items, and that's it. So we have a very small number of items. Normally we go in and we click that, and that would create a handpicked bacteria. We can go and do the handpicked bacteria. You see the list. This is only 5 items. And my own general take is that if you have less than 10 items, probably not worth doing things. And we'll just go over and take a peek over here. We will go and see what comes up by clicking here. Click here. And remember, my cutoff line is about 0.4. We have exactly 1 to take, Robacea, nothing like Japanese horseradish, and 1 avoid. And everything else is below the 0.4. Yes, you could include it, but I like things with a stronger impact. The fact that Robacea is there could be some challenges for some people to have Robacea for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Some people may object to that. Okay, let's go back to the samples. Second way around is to go in here and use JSONs there. I won't bother with count of multiply because I saw there was practically nothing there. We picked by hand everything that count of multiply would have done, and we added more. I'm gone nowhere, so I'm going to skip that. I'm going to go over the JSON stuff. We have a much better, we have a large number of items, 0.4 or above for to take, and basically nothing that sticks out to be avoided. The interesting thing about this is this person has chronic fatigue syndrome. And what I see here, especially resveratrol, plantarum, cacao, wheat bran, even pomegranate, barley, I'm a recovered CFSer. And basically my regular breakfast these 3 out of 7 days of the week is barley with wheat bran, walnuts, if sometimes, I make sure I have at least 1 bar of 95 or 85% chocolate every day for my cacao dosage, and also make sure I take fruits like bananas, etc. as part of my regular intake. So the suggestion I see, and my own experience with chronic fatigue syndrome, says, wait a minute, seems to be matched. In other words, using Jason's ranges, we ended up getting a a set of suggestions which I would say are appropriate for chronic fatigue syndrome, because for most of those I have looked at, you get the same pattern. Okay, now we can go back there, and the third one I'm going to go over to. It's the same one I have done. I won't go to chronic fatigue syndrome because that uses the cutoff Motrep ranges. Instead, I'm going to go to advanced there and go down to chronic fatigue syndrome. And I'll tell you, I've already gone through this exercise, so I'm just going to go and drop over, and we're going to take a look at 6%. So we're going to see Handpicked bacteria, which matches what has been reported high or low for chronic fatigue syndrome, and where you are on the top or the bottom 6 percentile. And we just go and we'll go and click and see what comes up. And there we go. We have things there. We have actually more avoid, and we have some interesting reversal, which is interesting. I want to take a look at bacteria detail. Oh, no wonder. Take a look at that. That is a pretty sparse list. My goal is usually to have at least 10, if not more, in the list. So I'm not surprised that things went south there, or unusual rather than south. So let's go up. And let's go back. And again, we're going to select chronic fatigue syndrome. And I'm going to go up to 12%. Let's see what happens there. 12%, we get something which is similar, except we have cacao. Let's see how many items we have. Again, we have a bigger list. We do have beta-glucan, which is what barley has consisted a lot of. We have a bunch of things. Heparin, etc. Holygos, linseed, flaxseed, which I often have in my own porridge. So we have some similarity, and melatonin, which usually helps, aspirin, etc. So depending on the richness of the number of bacteria you pick, it can have an impact. If you sparse, you may be just landing on oddities and get some odd suggestion. We can go up one more. And let's go all the way to the 15th percentile just for sake. Let's see what we have. We have a much longer list. A list I'll probably be happier with. And we can see where things are organized. Or there, vitamin B12, classic for chronic fatigue syndrome. We have some things moved over there, like cacao and inulin, which have moved over. So we end up having a little bit of disagreement. Again, the disagreement is because we're picking different bacteria and trying to shift them and send them. We don't have things in common. Okay, now that we have gone through that little exercise, we see we have a consensus here. And consensus purpose is to try to resolve the conflicts between things, or to come up with things which everybody deems to be safe, as in every set of suggestions. And that is a way of being cautious, to make sure that you are having the highest probability of good. It may not be as dramatic as some of the other stuff, but it is a quote safe approach, especially if you have had bad experiences with people suggesting diets and other things. So let's look at consensus. First thing I usually do is I click here and see where it is. And you can see iron comes in at the top. Dietary fiber is another one. The void count is ones which have 0 and 0 here are the sweet ones, because not once do we find any negative effects from it. So purely processed dietary fiber increase, which is what barley and inulin will do. Another one which is there is a low. I This is a little bit of a frustrating one. Take a look at my analysis in the lab. I think barley is down here, as in generally it's recommended, barley, oats, etc. Some of this I think is because I have just fixed one problem and that problem cascaded into a different set of problems. So that's fair enough. And then we have going through, etc. So very much like the last one, I want to do one more thing on this one because I just got it fixed, which is when you do the sample visualization, we have chrono charts. And they should be working now, and you should show a chart like this. And the main purpose of the chart is to better understand what's happening with bacteria in a pictorial thing, which lots of people. So here we have a chart here, and you can go in and pick some area. Let's say we take firmicutes here. We double click that, and what we have is we have all the firmicutes sitting there and there, and we have different types, and we can go over here and say, okay, let's click here and see what drilled on. So as you go down, you can see for each layer what is in it. As you can see, oh boy, look at all these things over there. We really have a lot of stuff there. So let's go and just take a look at this one. So we have the Blottia, different types of Blottia there, and then we have the other Blottia. In this case, the other Blottia are ones which have not been classified. That's 25%, which the labs are not able to measure, or we don't know what they are precisely. We haven't developed a fingerprint of what they are, or the fingerprint hasn't been given a name. So you can go in there and you can go back up by just clicking here to go over and see level up. So let's say we want to go through Rheumatococcus, and there's no drill down there. If we want to go over to one over here, we can go here and you can see where the breakdown is there. So that's basically all I wanted to do, was show that other little bit of thing. And if we go back, the last item, which is the cake suggested products and suggested probiotics and enzymes. Nothing there, which is not surprising. They usually will show up if there's a significant disturbance. If there are not a major disturbance, sometimes you will get no results. And let's go over to AI suggested supplements. One thing, vitamin B12. Now, the fun about this is being calculated from the enzymes in the bacteria, not all of them, but the ones which are known. And it says you're not producing enough B12 in there. And that was the same suggestion which came up from most of the analysis. And more importantly, if you look at clinical studies for chronic fatigue syndrome, B12 makes an improvement. So in one way, this validates how I'm calculating it, because it's coming up with not only reasonable but very common suggestions, although it knows nothing about chronic fatigue syndrome, and it only working off enzyme production, and the production of B12 in the enzyme is way down there. Hence it says, okay, you need to get more B12. So that's basically it. You have everything there. Let's go back here and let's look for B12. A moment to move this aside so you can see what. Okay, okay. I want to switch the whole page. File B12. There it is. And you can see it has a estimated net benefit is pretty high, a little bit of negative, but it's not. So it's very high there. Again, the choice of bacteria determines the suggestions coming up. We don't know how to magically pick the best bacteria, which we did. What the site does is give you options. Using JSONs will generally give you pretty good initial sets.
going in by the count-off mode of outliers will give you good results if you have a lot of them and where you have severe disturbances. If you have only a little disturbances, it's not. It's going to end up picking up some oddballs, which probably not going to have even if it works, it won't have a significant impact on the microbiome. Doing advanced, using the profile for your conditions, you can go and keep raising it until you get at least 10, 12, perhaps even 20 bacteria in the selection list. And then you get suggestions from there. And those suggestions should probably be taken in combination with Jason's suggestion. And the two of them combined for a consensus report. And you have a reasonably good, reasonably safe set of suggestions which has a high probability of changing your microbiome, or at least of those which I have tried this approach and done some before and after doing the suggestions. We see that the suggestions have actually worked. Not make things 100% perfect, but has increased or decreased, the substance have increased or decreased what it was supposed to, which is nice. So we have observational evidence that this whole process works. And that's it. So I'm going to shut up and get this uploaded and the blog post associated.